Hey, what's going on, Jets fans? Maybe you have a full-time job or even a social life and you weren't able to be glued to Twitter over the past week of Jets training camp. No problem, I got you covered. I'm going to give you the 10 biggest storylines, everything you need to know from week one of camp. If you appreciate that, a thumbs up is an easy way to show that. But either way, let's go Jets. Let's get right into it. First of all, biggest news, Quan Alexander officially inked his one-year deal with the Jets. A lot less than most people anticipated, about $1 million cap hit on a one-year rental. Robert Saleh saying all of the coach-like things about Quan Alexander. He's a hard worker, going to do everything we ask of him, saying that he also has the versatility to play the Will or the Sam, going to be the third backer in our 4-3 sets and compete to take away some reps with Quincy Williams in the 4-2-5, essentially what is the base as the nickel. Now, injury roundup. Braxton Berrios missed a couple days of practice. He was back on the field Saturday. George Fant, he's back off the pup. He's not holding out. Coach Saleh said they're not too concerned. Once they get the pads on next week, they're going to work him in slowly. He should be back on the field at some point next week. Carl Lawson, slowly ramping it up. Didn't really hear his names the first 2 days, then did get his first sack on Saturday. Connor Hughes saying that he was bullying the likes of Chuma Adoga and Connor McDermott, which is to be expected. Mekhi Becton, coming back from missing an entire season. You know, the headlines were on the first humid day. He was kneeling, taking extra breaks. Shouldn't be too surprising there. The kid hasn't played in over a year, but he did improve each of the first 3 days of camp. Had a rough start to day 2, giving up a couple of sacks, was really solid on day 3. Him and AVT opening up a ton of holes on the right side of the offensive line in the run game. Then there's Jeremy Ruckert, who still is kind of in no man's land a little bit with this plantar fasciitis. Robert Saleh has been really vague on him. He has been at the facility. There's some grainy footage of him doing some side drills, but he has not fully participated in OTAs, minicamp, or training camp so far. Something to keep an eye on there. Quinton Williams gave us all a scare being escorted off the field by trainers on Saturday, but he just got chopped in the throat. He's day-to-day. He should be back on the field, I'm assuming, on Monday. No big deal there. Then, quarterback, Zach Wilson. I just went through Rich Cimini's tweets of his completion percentages over the course of each day, and it totaled up to 43 out of 56, which is 65% completion percentage, 14 touchdowns to 5 picks. 2 of these interceptions that he threw coming in the red zone. Now, he's been spreading the ball around. Corey Davis has been, one of his favorite targets throughout the first few days. Garrett Wilson really popped on Saturday, catching multiple touchdowns, and him and Sauce Gardner, I thought this was really cool. Zach Wilson and Sauce Gardner, according to Sauce, stay after practice and they compare notes. And I'm not going to say the metaphor there, but you know where that's going. We're all getting better, okay? Now, the Jets defense is ahead of the offense. It's typical to start camp and the pass pro without fans going to be lacking. It's harder to block without pads on. Honestly, I would love just for one freaking camp for the Jets offense to be lighting up the defense. Wouldn't that be nice? Obviously, you like to hear the improvements from the defense. We'll get to that in a little bit. But as camp goes on, I do want to see stretches of 2 or 3 days where the offense is really getting the upper hand, because that's going to bode well for a young quarterback. And as Jets fans, it's just been too long since we've had a lot of firepower on that side of the ball. So I do want to see that eventually. Now, the Jets rookies, they look the part, especially those first-round picks. Sauce Gardner, him and Bryce Hall have been splitting reps. Coach Saleh saying he's got to earn it, and that makes sense. But all signs point to him being the starting cornerback on the outside alongside DJ Reed. Week 1, 3 different Jets reporters have used the word ridiculous to explain or describe Sauce's physical tools. He looks every bit of that 6'3" long arm frame. Robbie Sabo mentioning that you often hear about catch radius with wide receivers, but his coverage radius is really ridiculous, making it really hard for quarterbacks to fit balls into windows. He just closes up windows with his range and his reach. Breece Hall, Connor Hughes summed it up by saying it's impossible not to see that he's different. Robbie Sabo praising his one-cut downhill ability, calling his speed and explosion tremendous, and complimenting his soft hands that he's demonstrated so far throughout camp. Garrett Wilson doesn't seem to make any boring catches. Every catch, the video or tweet describing a catch is acrobatic or diving or toe drag swag. He took a short pass from Joe Flacco, juked to safety for a 50-yard touchdown, and he caught multiple touchdown balls from Zach Wilson in the red zone, became Zach Wilson's favorite target on Saturday, the third day of camp. Jermaine Johnson, he's been rotating in with the second team with Carl Lawson and JFM getting the first team reps at edge. He did get his first sack on Friday and multiple pressures on Saturday. Michael Clemens also been rotating in there with the second and third units and notched a sack in Friday's practice. A couple of veterans that have been standing out. Connor Hughes mentioned 5 of them, 3 of them coming on the defensive front. Quinnen Williams has been, quote, a bully, according to Hughes, notching 3 sacks over the first 3 days of practice. Bryce Huff has really shown some impressive speed off the edge, blowing right by Mekhi Becton, 2 straight third down reps on Friday. And Robert Saleh saying he's been one of these guys that has completely transformed his body. I think Bryce Huff is he's going to be a lock to make this team, in my opinion. His speed off the edge just complements perfectly the power element of some of our other edge rushers. And he was blowing up the Jets' offense on third downs, according to Zach Rosenblatt. DJ Reed has really looked the part. The veteran corner has hands all over would-be completions from Jets quarterbacks throughout camp. He also, maybe the highlight play for the defense so far, picked off Zach Wilson on an underthrown corner route, taking it 100 yards back to the house for a pick 6. How about some guys trying to make a name for themselves? Well, a lot of guys, young dudes on the bottom of the wide receiver depth chart, trying to maybe itch at that 6th spot. It's going to be tough to crack the wide receiver room. The Jets mostly only had 5 wide receivers active last year on game day, but undrafted free agent Irvin Charles has really impressed with the third team, making several toe drag swag type catches. Seems to have decent chemistry with quarterback Mike White. Former USFL wide receiver recent signee Rashard Davis also impressed with his deep speed, making what Connor Hughes called the offensive play of camp, hauling in a deep bomb from quarterback Joe Flacco. He also took a screen pass deep for a touchdown, making several defenders miss as well. And then we have Keyshawn Abram. Dennis Wajak Jr. called him one of the most impressive athletes among the reserves. He's an athletic freak, undrafted free agent as well. We got Calvin Jackson Jr., who's been quiet as an undrafted free agent. So you got like 4 or 5, even 6 guys really trying to compete for that last wide receiver spot. Maybe 1 or 2 of them can be stashed on the practice squad. Then some position battles. Free safety LaMarcus Joyner definitely seems to have the leg up, running with the 1s as Jason Pinnock runs with the 2s. Linebacker, I think that when Quan Alexander gets back, you'll see him start to snap some reps from Quincy Williams in the 4-2-5, but definitely be in there on sub packages as well. Joe Flacco seems to be entrenched as the QB2. The kickers, both making about 75% of their kicks from 40-plus yards per Wazek Jr. And to kind of sum this all up, how about some roster power rankings? Robbie Sabo tweeting this out. And some of these things aren't surprising. We like to see the talent on the perimeter with the Jets' secondary and wide receiver units being really, really strong. There are reinforcements coming at linebacker soon. Next week with Quan Alexander. There are not reinforcements coming in the run game. That's probably the biggest concern on the defensive side of the ball. And then quarterback down at 7, that's tough. You know, you often hear the phrase, it's all on Zach Wilson, and maybe that sounds unfair, but it is what it is. Is Zach Wilson's ability to, or inability to, take a significant leap forward is going to determine the ceiling of this football team next year. Speaking of next year, week 1, Baltimore Ravens. How do the Jets get a win, you might ask? Well, I got 5 steps, so you can click right below to see how the Jets can get it upset week 1 at MetLife Stadium. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll talk ball soon.